There were a lot of things to take out of Media Day and the last 2 days of Chicago Bulls training camp. And there was a lot of players saying a lot of things. And one thing that stood out the most is how a lot of these young guys want to be more vocal leaders moving on in their careers. So the question for today is, who is going to step up and lead the youth movement for the Chicago Bulls? Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down, but you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. To my people that's been rocking with us, welcome back. To the people that's new to the channel, if you're locked in and tuned in and ready to go, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just in case that you missed what's been going on in training camp thus far, I'm here to give you a real quick recap on what took place in day 2 of some of the things that came out from day 2 of Chicago Bulls training camp. We heard things about Billy Donovan. He talked about Lonzo continuing his work and even came out and said, though he needs to adjust a little bit when it comes to the speed of the game again, the IQ is still stellar for Lonzo Ball. We also had things come out and things being said from Jalen Smith and how he wants to be a professional, whatever their role is, and come out more and even talked about what he can bring to the Chicago Bulls. And lastly, from the recap, we heard Ayo Dosunmu make a case or say that he can make a case for Montes Buzelis being the most athletic Bull on the team. Hey, you take it for what you will, but that is what it is. Now let's get into it. Now, remember back in September, we started to receive reports from the Chicago Bulls attending, a mini camp, a player mini camp held by the players. Come to find out, according to Ayo Dosunmu, that whole situation was placed on and developed and brought together by Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. So very good job of those two young players. And that situation there is what brought me here today to talk about Ayo Dosunmu, to talk about Kobe White, some of the things that they've been saying in the media lately, some of the actions they have put behind those words that they have been placing out there lately. New guys coming into, on the scene, guys that's already been here, kind of taking a step back and said, I'm not going to stunt the growth of these young players, or I'm just here. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to give the coaches whatever they need and just simply do my job and be a professional. We heard a lot of things about professionalism. We heard a lot of things about guys being the vocal leaders. But that's why I'm sitting here and I'm asking, which one of these young guys is going to help push the Chicago Bulls youth movement? Who's going to help the Chicago Bulls push this youth movement? We already heard from the front office that this is not a finished product. This is what we have, but this roast is still roasting. This meatloaf is still baking. This thing is still being pieced together. So that's what we have to consider when we talk about the direction of the Chicago Bulls. And if you ask me, they've positioned themselves in a pretty decent spot to move on, in the right direction. We talked about those players that have came in with experience, though they are youthful and have that age to where those guys are 24 and below for most of the guys that's on the squad, 25 at the most for most of the guys. But you talk about guys that you brought in like a Josh Giddey, who has years of experience on there, who has Kobe White, who's been a part of the team and been a part of different things that the Chicago Bulls have been trying to do with years of experience in his young NBA career. Patrick Williams, another one, Ayo Dosunmu, and we can go on with the Chicago Bulls players, but we all know that this young squad, they coming in as a young squad. But the good thing is that these guys have some experience, even to the point to where I got to show my man's love, Hayes, some love, because he pointed this out. If you're thinking about even the guys that they bought through training camp, your Kenny Lofton Jr.'s, your THTs and those guys, though they are, coming in and trying to make the team, you're still evaluating talent that has played in the NBA to kind of help continue to push forward for your Chicago Bulls. Now, when we talk about the players individually and who can potentially step up, there's a list of players that you could probably say could or potentially not, step up. One of those players is Ayo Dosunmu. Already talked about it. And when we talk about the event that he just put together back in September, and we talk about some of the things that we've seen on the floor, it kind of fits that mold. It even came down to the point to where me and CDubb on the live yesterday had the question: is Ayo Dosunmu the replacement for Alex Caruso? You know what I'm saying? Or can he replace Alex Caruso? We came to the conclusion that he doesn't necessarily have to be Alex Caruso per se. But if he wants to be that vocal leader and be that guy that comes in off the bench that can have an impact on the offensive side of the ball, that can have an impact on the defensive side of the ball, that can go out and make winning plays for your basketball team, we believe that Ayo Dosunmu is that caliber of a player, especially me. And I also look at Ayo Dosunmu as being one of those players to where he has a skill set that you can really, really hone in on, and you can get a lot of things out of this young player. To be quite frank with you, I believe, including myself, a lot of us have overlooked Ayo Dosunmu in his capabilities. Like we get reminded quite often because we follow the team, at a extensive amount of time, with an extensive amount of time. So that's what we do. But sometimes we do forget, and sometimes you got to get that little nudge aside your head and be like, yeah, Ayo Dosunmu, one of those. But one of the things that I love is that the vocal leadership, the things that he's done on the court. We've seen Ayo Dosunmu pull Vooch to the side. Nah, bro, we don't need that right now. We seen him approach DeMar DeRozan as a rookie and be like, nah, man. Or if you're not saying nothing, he pulling them out of that situation to where you can go ahead and draw up another technical, or there's a potential for somebody getting ejected. He's shown that he is not afraid to step in those situations. So that's why, if we keeping it a buck, he's one of my leading guys who I believe can help push the Chicago Bulls youth movement forward to where this unfinished product could be a finished product and be contending for a championship, hopefully. But we still have a lot of work to do. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself. But another player I'm looking at is Coby White. I'm looking at Coby White and all the things that he's been through. And you say, man, did this guy prevail? Man, did this guy, Coby White, win? Because he came in, he started young, then he was moved to the bench, didn't perform so well on the bench. A lot of us wanted to trade him, including me. Then he made us a believer, told us to shut the F up, then came out. And when Zach LaVine went down and the Bulls didn't really have nowhere to turn to when it comes to, players and all that, they waited and they played the patient game. Coby White, with the extra work that he put in, has prevailed. And he's already been saying it for the longest now that he wants to hold guys accountable. He wants to hold himself accountable. He wants to be an extension of Billy Donovan when it comes out there. He wants to help his team, and he wants to do whatever is necessary to help his team succeed. And him being in partnership with Ayo Dosunmu to put on the mini camp, that was a great action and a great step forward for Coby White as well. Other guys that have spoke up, Jalen Smith, the newcomer to the team, he did speak up and did say that he wanted to be a more of a vocal leader. He believed that, and I'm paraphrasing here, he believed that it is his time now to be that vocal leader that he has seen in his short NBA career. So he wants to now bring that to the Chicago Bulls. He understands that this is now a rebuild situation. So he wants to show him a lot of love, and I got to respect it. I'm not saying that a newcomer can't come in and be the leader of a squad, but I will say that right now, what it appears to look like is that some of the guys that's been here a little bit longer has a little bit more clout. That can obviously change because the team is still so new and we just now working into training camp. So right now, I ain't counting them out, but I say it's just going to take a little bit more time for Jalen Smith. Now, the last person I have to ask the question before I even talk about him is P. Will. Do we believe P. Will is ready? I know for me, I've lost a lot of confidence in P. Will. I know there are people that in Bulls Nations that kind of feels the same way. I don't like to speak for people, so I let those discussions be had on your own. But for me, I have lost a little bit of confidence for P. Will. But I am excited for P. Will this season because I was one of those guys that said, hey, DeMar DeRozan needs to get out of the way for P. Will to flourish. I did eventually change my position on that and say, hey, at some point, P. Will, you got to show us something with what you got, at least something. So though he has done some great things, though he has left some things to be desired, I still believe I at least have to give him a chance to do something before I clearly just write him off 100%, especially because the Chicago Bulls just invested in this young player, so he's going to be here for some time. So when P. Will coming out and saying that he wants to be a more vocal leader, take the things that he learned from DeMar DeRozan and those guys, his vets and things like that. I think he even mentioned Thad Young as a part of that mentorship that he's received throughout his career. And y'all correct me if I'm wrong on that for the interview that he did with CBS Sports. But I do believe he mentioned the Thad Young as one of the guys that he wants to take all the information that he gathered from them and now carry that on now that the Bulls is now in this new iteration and are moving forward as we're trying to push the youth movement. But when we consider all those people, I know it ain't happening this year. I know it ain't. But I have to ask the question anyway. Is there a player lurking in the darkness? Y'all know where I'm going with this. Montes Buzelis. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's all crazy. But is this young player hanging in the darkness to possibly take over in a year or two as that leader of the Chicago Bulls? Is that possible? Is it possible that Montes Buzelis could be taking over the leadership role in about another year or two? I say it's very well possible. He has the skill set to back up anything that he says on the floor. He has the mentality to back up anything he says or do off the floor. There's no way you're going to be able to keep this lightning bolt in a bottle forever. So I'm anxious to see it. But right now, I believe that Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White are the front runners to kind of lead this youth movement, because we know, especially with quotes that came from Mark Eversley some time ago, it's not about Zach LaVine anymore. It's not about Nikola Vucevic anymore. So this is opening up those gateways for somebody to rise up. It can be somebody that shock us. It could very well be. But if you asking me, if I'm a betting man, I'll bet my money on Ayo or Kobe White, at least for that. Because as of right now, if we're talking about the leadership, and if there's no de facto leader right now and everybody's kind of trying to find their way until we let the dominoes fall where they should, I believe that this could be a leadership by committee type situation. But my only problem is if this is a leadership by committee type of situation to where everybody's going to have an input, what's going to happen when two guys bump heads? That's what I'm anxious to see, because there's not, and I'm not saying that it's going to be turmoil that leads to guys getting into it or not, but it's going to be a time to where two guys have a difference in opinion. That's just life. It happens all the time. Who's going to settle that? Who's going to be the head honcho to settle that? You know what I'm saying? I know it's going to take some time, so hear me clearly. It's going to take some time so we can find out where those things line up and how it's going to all mesh. You know what I'm saying? It's going to take some time. But right now, we still got to see how everything is going to line up for the Chicago Bulls. It will take time, though. It will take time. But that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Down below, let me know how you're feeling about today's episode. Who do you believe is going to take charge? Who's going to lead the Chicago Bulls youth movement? Let me know down below. Leave your thoughts and everything down below. I appreciate y'all for tuning in with me for another episode of Shy Bulls Podcast. Before you head up out of here, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with somebody that you think might enjoy it. Thank y'all so much. Make sure you always see red. And you already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. For sure.
Cognac.